Now I will explain how houses 1 and 3 work together. This information will be relevant for understanding situations like if the third lord is in the first house or first lord is in the third house. Or more to the point, I want to explain how it works in the house sequences and house poles. Because I have a new report called the Houses of Life, and really the backbone of that report gives you an analysis of your houses in a sequence of how prominent they are and how positive and negative they are. And that sequence of 12 numbers is what I call the DNA code of the houses, and it's really the most important part of the report, but because it's such a novel way of presenting the information, people aren't really used to how to work with it. So I want to do this series of videos explaining, how you actually unpack all the information that's encoded in it. So for today, if you have 1 or 3 in any of these positions, like where they're in a sequence or on the opposite ends of the code, then this will be really relevant information for you. So just like with anything else, you want to look to see what the two things that are combining have in common, and then determine if the commonality is similar or clashing. With the third house and the first house, the basic thing that they both have in common is that the first house signifies the birth or the appearance of something, where something becomes tangible and manifest. And the third house is actually exactly the same thing, because it's on the eastern side of the fourth house, so it's showing how the inner things, emotions and so forth, move towards the east and become tangible and real. So really the third house has a birth nature to it where things become real and tangible, and the first house has a birth nature to it where things become real and tangible. So having first lord and third house, third lord and first house, first and third house sequences is very, very good, because the basic nature of the two houses is very similar. They resonate with each other a lot, and they go in the same direction. However, if it's a pole in your DNA sequence where there's a 3 on one side and a 1 on the other, then it's going to be a difficult thing. These are not the two houses you want to have on a pole. These are the two houses you want to have in a sequence. So I'll try to explain the interpretations of the various effects, both in terms of them being a sequence and also as a pole. Basically, the fact that the first house is about tangibility and manifestation and birth, and so is the third house, that basically shows that this person has a lot of talent and skill in making things tangible and making things manifest. So they have a great deal of motivation to actually do things, to be real, to get real things done, to accomplish real things, not just to dream, not just to wish, but to act and to grab hold of things and make things tangible, make tangible progress. If this is in a pole where you have 3 on one side and 1 on the other, then it's the opposite thing, where this is a weakness. That you're jumping to this too soon and you're too frustrated by the inability to not make things real because you don't realize that it takes some planning and foresight first before you can do it. The next thing I want to explain about 1 and 3 is that the first house is about the self. It's about birth, and the thing that gets born in a natal chart is the self, the person, the individual. The third house is also very individualistic and self-y, selfish, you could even say, because it's how the inner feelings, fourth house, move towards the first house. So it's the self-direction of the inner feelings. So it's self-centeredness or selfishness, and it's also the desire to express yourself. The individuality, the uniqueness in a person comes from the third house. So if you have first house followed by third house, or some other thing like first lord in the third or third lord in the first, then it's a strong indicator. This person is strong. They're not wishy-washy. They're clear-cut and definite, especially about who they are and what they want. So the 1 and 3 sequence indicates a person that establishes themselves, knows who they are, defines themselves, relies on themselves, motivates themselves, There's a lot of self-sufficiency in this combination of houses 1 and 3, unless it's the pole. If it's a 1-3 pole, then the weakness there is you're trying to be self-sufficient inappropriately, or you're overly valuing self-sufficiency and it's interfering with your dependence. You're not recognizing your dependence, because you feel humiliated by dependence. And the final very important essential thing to talk about when we talk about how 1 and 3 interact together is the fact that the first house shows your skills. By virtue of showing who you tangibly are, it shows your qualities, and your qualities show your skills. So the first house actually has a huge impact on what kind of skills a person has. Third house also shows your skills, because the third house is all about achieving desires. And so you develop skills in order to achieve desires, because you have to compete with people. So when you have first lord and third house, third lord and first house are first and third houses in sequence in the house report, then it's indicating that you're skilled. Now, a couple of other words to make that more clear. Dexterous. There's dexterity in how you do what you do. There's exactness in how you do what you do. Cleverness is also there. And picking the word clever as a particular connotation of intelligence. Clever meaning you know how to get the result that you want to get. Talented is another word to explain what we mean by skilled. You have the ability to get what you want to get. It's talented, or to achieve the effect that you want to achieve. If it's a 1-3 pole, then you're clumsier than you should be. You're rushing. You're acting from a place where you weren't balanced, so you couldn't be dexterous. You rushed it, and then you botched it. You fumbled it because you rushed. So this is how houses 1 and 3 work, both in terms of their lords, going into each other's houses, or especially in terms of how they work in the DNA code from the house report as a sequence or as a pole. I hope that this example is useful for people who have this specific sequence, or just even if you have a totally different sequence, now that you see how this is done in general, you can apply it to whatever sequences and poles you do have. Make sure you stay tuned, subscribe, hit the bell so you get the notifications, because I'll do all of the possible combinations eventually, hopefully 1 per week. Thank you very much.